Newcastle United will be the subject of the new Amazon series documenting the club's push into the Champions League called We Are Newcastle United. And here's a little teaser.
What's the ambition? It's to be number one. That's the ambition. This is the biggest deal the club will have ever done.
Last year, the measure of success was to not be relegated. This year, it's slightly different.
Now, we've seen this documentary pop up before. We've seen Arsenal do it. I think we even saw Sunderland on Netflix. They did it. We Are Sunderland or something? Or Sunderland
yeah,
Till We
when
Die.
Rodwell would never ever leave.
Yeah, Sunderland Till We Die. And obviously there was a Spurs one. Now, Danny, we know that you were heavily involved.
Was that?
in the Spurs one. First and foremost, what's it like being part of that documentary? And also, do you notice the cameras are everywhere?
Yeah, it takes some getting used to. For example, I don't know if the physios are told that they have to make you aware, but they all the time, you go for a massage or treatment, some of them would say, look, lads, we're mic'd up. And so depending on, where the club allow the cameras, it is, even, at the stadium, in the changing room, they're in there. And, probably the most embarrassing night of my time at Spurs, we'd just been beat 7-2 to BeIN in the Champions League, and the next day...
Yeah.
So they'd already been there probably a month or so, but the next day they'd put microphones on the canteen tables, and they looked like salt and pepper. So we didn't know. So we've just been beat 7-2, and we're just hammering like everything, like can't believe this, can't believe that, and then we've noticed like, oh, what's that? And straight away we said, no, you need to take that away. But yeah, it takes some getting used to, and it's obviously it's great for a football club, and it can be great for players as well.
Did you notice that people acted differently when they knew that the cameras were on? Because I've seen in training, I've seen some of my teammates being mic'd up. I'm like, you don't usually speak, and now you're trying to orchestrate and start bossing me around. Like, I think it could work on the flip side where people start acting differently. Did you notice that?
Yeah. So when I said it depends where a manager or a club allow them to film. So, for example, I haven't seen any other ones, but for example, when Poch was there, he wasn't keen on them being able to watch too much of training, so there wasn't anybody, acting out of character. The most that I would ever see them actually walking around with a camera would be if we was travelling to away games, and they'd record us, having pre-match or evening meals. But in terms of walking around the building, I can't say that I ever thought that somebody was acting up or being different to how they normally was now.
Did the players have much say in the final cut? I know they've paid a lot of money for these rights, but you just said there about they hid the mics in the salt and pepper. Like, did the players get much say if they didn't like something that was maybe gonna have been recorded?
I'd say probably not, but I think again I haven't even watched Tottenham's one, but I don't think anybody would have been painted out. Well, how I was, should I say?
You know what? I wanted you to finish that sentence because I was about to say, have you seen how they portrayed you in it?
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but so again, I've never ever told this to anybody, obviously apart from my close friends. But again, when Poch was the manager, cameras were not allowed in his office. So I've gone to the office thinking it's still the same, and obviously there's cameras there now. So I didn't know. So I'm not saying it would have changed how I would have approached the situation, but so in terms of answering your question, did players get sort of a say on the last cut or whatever, that was something that I had an issue with because
clearly you didn't, judging by the reaction of it.
What, have an issue? You
didn't have a say. No, you didn't have a say.
Well, not really, but I sort of spoke to legal people and went to the MP of Tottenham, David Lammy, and spoke to him about it, because in any walk of life, having a conversation with your line manager should be private, and I had to be told from my teammates, but I was already out on loan at Newcastle at this point, so my teammates knew before I knew, and I was like, hold on a minute, are you being serious? And that's where I had an issue. Well, in the end, I just let them do what they needed to do, and
I know as well, you said you've not really seen the Dele Alli thing in its entirety, but interestingly enough about that documentary, what Dele Alli brought up, didn't he, when he said that, Jose Mourinho called him lazy, and then it was almost like a week later he apologised, but that wasn't on the documentary, and we only found that out like 2 weeks ago when Dele Alli came out with it, and he said every team he signed for when he went over to Turkey, everybody would then start calling him lazy. And even Gary Neville said, you know, I've had you, I coached you. That's not something I'd ever say, but it was this stigma that was attached. But they actually, Jose Mourinho apologised, but they didn't put that in the documentary.
Right, and again, that is not something you put next to Dele's name. So pre-season, you do not want to be anywhere near Dele in the running because he's the fittest.
Fitter than Delphi.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So Dele, obviously under Poch, he's like the number one every game, 3 games a week. Dele runs the most, like hardly ever injured. So laziness is like, you don't put that next to Dele's name. So whenever, I've heard that, you know, from people at other clubs, you know, he's, you know, he don't really do this or that in training. I'm like, nah, that's not the Dele that I know.
What about the All or Nothing documentary, which I watch a lot of the NFL stuff, so we've seen it with some of my team, the Eagles were on it, we've seen the Cowboys, there's been loads of teams on there. So it's a very American thing. Do you think we're going to start to see more of this type of stuff when it comes to Premier League football in this country?
Yeah, I think, and it can also work on the flip side, a positive way. Arsenal last year, I felt like, I'm not saying that's the reason why they had a good season because they played well, but I think Mikel Arteta, everybody got behind the scenes. No one gets it at Arsenal. Even when Arsene Wenger was there, we weren't allowed to have our phones, nothing like that. So now you're getting a peek behind the curtain of what goes on. I think a lot of Arsenal fans then thought, actually, Granit Xhaka does care. You know, those types of things. So I think that Arsenal documentary was exceptional, how it made the club look, and it made the fans. Look at the Emirates Stadium last year. It was completely different to any time before. I'm not saying it's based upon the documentary, but the fans just want to see. All they want is their players to care. And it took the documentary for them to realise that. Yeah. But just quickly, I've heard a little something that when you two were rooming, is there something about a peanut allergy, Danny?
Yeah, so...
What do you mean peanut allergy?
This news to you. I got allergy. Let him see.
He won't remember, but obviously back when I was 17, I think we went on a pre-season camp to Bournemouth under Harry. And me and Benny were sharing rooms, and... we've gone down for lunch, and I've had dessert, and I've got a nut allergy. So I've had apple crumble, and I've wolfed it down, and I've gone back to the room and not realised I've put nuts on it. So my neck's swelling up, and I'm struggling to swallow, and I'm like looking at Benty for a little bit of help, and Benty's just on his PlayStation, just even like, are you okay or anything?
Are you
I'm laying on the floor trying to breathe, like, Benty, will you call the doctor? And he's just like on his PlayStation. So
I think got the doctor, didn't I?
No, you didn't. I called the doctor, and
wow.
I don't know. He might be exaggerating.
FIFA's more important.
I can't remember him on the floor. Like
I was on the floor. I laid on the floor, and I was like, "This is my idol." Like, he's just playing his PlayStation all night. Like,
I could have done that.
Do you remember it, Benny?
Listen, I remember rooming with Danny. I think we were down south somewhere.
Yeah, Bournemouth. I think we must have gone to where Harry lived.
But I don't remember the whole nuts on the floor and then just.
You do remember playing PlayStation though, don't you?
Yeah,
you have selective memory.
PlayStation everywhere.
Yeah.
But well, okay, but Danny, listen, on national radio now, I'd like to apologise for nearly letting you down.
talkSPORT Drive with Andy Goldstein, Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.